So going along with that, Rep City. I don't know if that's your term, but you use it a lot. How did Rep City come about?
So I'm from New York City. Right? I'm from New York City. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I always had like a really cool association with New York. When people ask me like, "Where are you from?" Like, I'm from New York City. That's my city. I'm a high rep kind of guy. So I kind of mashed up the hybrid. I said Rep City, but Rep City is this fictional place where we go and we enter Rep City to train. Like, welcome to Rep City. It's a place for those that want to hit the high volume, hit the hardcore workouts, and that's our place. It's not just my place. Everybody visits Rep City, and we're in this together. And it's a place that welcomes you if you want to train, right? It's almost like this big magical fictional place where guys go and hammer out the burpees. It's like it's a high rep calisthenics guys paradise. It's where we live and where we train. And you know, we're all citizens of Rep City. If you want to take a trip to Rep City, you know what I'm saying, it's like an all you can eat buffet. There's something waiting for you there, and you know, have at it. You're welcome.
Okay, but I as I said in my IG story, I think you are the mayor of Rep City. I don't know, because again, you know, I've been around for years. I'm a couple of years older than you, and I've watched a lot of stuff. And in terms of volume, yeah, your numbers are up there for sure. So speaking about reps and high volume, so if you were going to say to somebody, and again, we've talked a little bit about this, but so if someone says specifically, okay, so today, Art, I'm starting out and I can do 5 push-ups or I can do 5 burpees or whatever, but I want to come and visit. I want to live in Rep City, whatever. What are your recommendations that you would give to them on how to develop the volume and how to develop the endurance?
Yeah, I would say for my best advice for beginners is really start slow and let your body adapt to the volume. So let's say, you know, you do 10 burpees and you're gassed out. You're a complete beginner. I always say train every other day. Let your body heal, and also don't forget about the warm up and the cool down part of the training as well, because that's going to make you a stronger athlete. I also tell the beginners this: focus on form over volume in the beginning. Look at the proper technique of the burpee, because that's going to make you efficient. Once you become more efficient, that's when the volume will come. Forget about the volume. Focus on doing the exercise the correct way, and only start adding repetitions till you could complete your set number of repetitions with ease when it becomes too easy, when you don't feel challenged anymore. I don't like saying percentages where some people say like, hey, add 10 reps every week. That might not be tangible for somebody, because it might take them 3 weeks to get adapted to those numbers. You know when something becomes effortless for you. If I were to do 100 burpees right now from my 10 years of training, that doesn't give me a stimulus. If it doesn't give you a stimulus anymore, that's when you move up to the next level and you add the volume. That is the best advice to the beginners I could give. When it stops being hard, that's when you need to progress. If you're not growing anymore, add volume, add variation, add repetition.
Okay. Now, so somebody asked a question here. And so when you do the burpees and you're starting out low numbers, that's something that's relatively easy. Well, not relatively easy, but it's easier in that you're going, you know, you're coming down to the ground and you're going to get back up. And whether you can do 1, whether you can do 10, that's attainable for most people. But somebody asked about pull-ups, right? Which is now a different kind of strength. Instead of pushing strength, it's a pulling strength. So if you can't develop, or if you cannot do a pull-up, how are you going to train someone to go from not doing one to being able to do one, and then to create a situation where they can add that volume?
Are we talking about for pull-ups specifically, or just
pull-ups specifically?
For pull-ups, I would work on if somebody has the possibility to do some kind of body weight rows or negative. Let's just say if you have a pull-up bar, the best way to do it is to jump on a pull-up bar, hold it, and lower yourself slowly, where you're focusing on the eccentric part of the motion. That's still going to strengthen the muscles that you need for pulling. So start like that and start lowering yourself down. Also, the best method is, I don't know if anybody heard about it, it's called greasing the groove, where you approach the bar and you do the exercises as many times as you can while as fresh as you can. So you never max out, so you're not burning out your nervous system. I think that works the best way with pull-ups. You shouldn't be sore. You should be walking away from the pull-up bar feeling energized. So make it a routine. Develop that strength as a skill instead of a workout. That's how you should approach it. It shouldn't be a workout. It should be a skill, like a motor skill. Hit it and then walk around. Maybe in an hour, come back, try to hit it again. Always stay fresh. You're going to build your muscles up to that way. Once you could do one pull-up, then we'll start building on top of that.
Yeah, and I really like that idea of developing it as a skill first, right? Yep. I think that's amazing. All right, so here's a question now. So as I said, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm a sports medicine guy, and so I'm gonna touch on a little bit of injury stuff now, right? So obviously with high volume, and you mentioned this earlier on, you know, you've got to vary your grip or vary your hand position so that we decrease the amount of strain in one position. But first of all, when you're doing such high volumes, do you have any concerns about repetitive use injuries?
I do. That goes kind of in the back of my mind, and I'm thinking like, well, I'm not feeling it now, but what about, you know, in the long run? I do really like to focus on form, and I'm very attentive. If you see my videos, my form, not to boast, but I have pretty good form because I watch my videos again and I see like, hey, where can I improve, or like my hand positions, or, you know, how can I adjust? And I listen to my body as well. If something doesn't feel comfortable, I'll move my hand positions. I'll move my feet positions. I used to do burpees with my feet really close together, and I felt like that was putting some strain on my lower back when I would pop up after doing high repetitions. So I started playing with my feet. Hey, maybe when I do a burpee and I stand up, if I keep my feet shoulder width apart, that might help a little bit with the lower back strain. Or if I keep my core tight on the push-up and imagine that my back is flat, that's gonna really help from my hips from sagging, and my lower back is not going to hurt. So I always feel like I should mitigate the wear and tear of the high rep repetitions by always focusing on doing the exercise the right way. I feel like if you do something the right way, that's going to be your key to longevity, besides the obvious warm up and cool down after the exercises. But but you're the expert. I'm no doctor. That's just kind of my idea about it. And so far, I don't have any kind of joint or shoulder pain or wrist pain. But I am very attentive to my mobility before my workouts.
Okay.
Very attentive.
Well, so you just mentioned someone put up a question here, and I know who this person is, the trainer who put this up, and so they said injuries / mobility, and one of the things that I was interested, and I'll let you speak more about this, your thoughts about mobility, but I was interested. Normally, when I see a lot of people, especially if they're doing high reps or heavy weights or that kind of stuff, they're all about the gains, and they don't do anything about mobility. But I was interested to see one of your posts where you are doing a lot of the same exercises that we teach for wrist and upper extremity mobility, and you were doing that yourself. So give us your thoughts about mobility and how that relates to keeping yourself, functioning properly.
Yeah, it's maintenance. It's like a tune-up on a car. If you don't keep up with that stuff is gonna get old or rusty, or it's gonna give out on you. I always feel like you should prime the body and focus on whatever body parts you're gonna be working that day. So if obviously if I'm doing burpees, I'm really focusing on my shoulder mobility, I'm doing all the wrist mobility, and I'm really priming my body every time I go in. I'm making sure everything's right. It's almost like doing checks on an airplane before it takes off into flight. It's like, hey, everything's good. The engine's good. All right, this is lubed up. This is primed up. Everything looks good. Okay, am I cleared hot? All right, let's do it. And that kind of like that, my mental checklist goes through my mind. What am I going to be working on today? Oh, I'm going to be doing a lot of Navy SEALs. That's really heavy on the shoulders, and that's really heavy on the glutes and the quads, bringing the legs back and forth. So I'm going to really focus on getting all those muscles warmed up, so I'm ready to go. And I noticed that consistency with that and consistency with the workouts really provides longevity, because you treat your body good, and it's going to respond really well to you as well.
Okay. Somebody asked, do you deploy any other traditional means of cardio? If yes, what's the volume like per week?
So I run about 4 to 5 days a week, separate from my workouts, or if I'm not running, I like to jump on the rowing machine. Either or is good. When I was back in the States, I'd love to swim. I think that's a great workout. I feel like cardio should be done for time. It should always be timed, and it shouldn't be leisurely unless you're doing a active recovery. So if I'm doing some kind of cardio exercise, I'm going to set a time, and I'm going to do a time hack. Or if I'm doing intervals, I'm trying to hit those splits. It's always performance-based cardio for me, and that always worked for me. Otherwise, there's no way that I'm going to spend 45 minutes on the elliptical watching TV. I can't do it.
I hear you, and I agree. Now, we got a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask one more question from the audience here, and I'm going to kind of generalize it. They ask, any advice for stiff lower back the morning after training? I stretched, but it doesn't seem, what does it say here? It doesn't seem to be enough. And I would just say, so obviously I know that there are probably days when you're sore and tight. So what are your recommendations for those days after, right? So you've done a heavy workout the day before. The next day you come and you're like, you're just tight and cramped up or whatever. What are your recommendations for that?
So what I learned is before I stretch, I really like to warm up to get the core temperature elevated. And I feel like that gets the stretches a lot deeper. So if you have a really stiff lower back, maybe go for a light jog and then really hit the stretches hard, because I believe the muscle is warmed up and it's a little bit more elastic. Other than that, some recovery tools. I know foam rollers are great. I foam roll too. I feel like that gets my lower back. And if it doesn't get better, then you might have to check if you're doing too much volume for your fitness level. And if you're sore all the time and you're walking around in a lactic acid bath, then maybe your training is doing more harm than good, and you have to pull back the reins a little bit, because you're training to be better and to be healthier, not always to be sore. Your training shouldn't be counterproductive.
For sure. And one of the things that I like about this training is that there's a little bit of you're kind of playing in between aerobic conditioning and anaerobic conditioning. And if you, as you said, if you want to turn it up a little bit and make it anaerobic, then you add in a couple more pumps, right? If you want to make it more aerobic, then you just take down the pace a little bit, right? And make it simpler. So you can kind of tailor which system you're in and sort of predetermine how much soreness, how much lactic acid that you're going to develop by doing that. So yeah. Listen, we're running out of time here. We got to stop in a few minutes. So any last thoughts that you want to share with this audience on this podcast today?
Yeah, absolutely. In the end, you hear my advice. You're in control of your own body and your own workouts. You have to figure out what works for you. And this is the beauty of it. It's the trial and error. And this is your own fitness journey. This is your own goals. So play around with it. You have the freedom to do whatever you want. And it's great, because you could really hit those goals. You could accomplish whatever you want. You could take your body to new heights. You just have to put in the work, and the results will come. Just show up, and everything else will follow suit. Nobody ever walked away feeling bad unless they didn't show up. It's the workouts that you don't go to where you don't feel like it, where you beat yourself up. You come up and do the work, whether it be good or bad. At least you showed up and you did it. So if anybody's ever questioned yourself, just get out of bed and go train. Good or bad day, at least you did the right thing, and you're making yourself better. And I'm there along with you in the process. Just so you know that Iron Wolf is a human too. I have my good days and my bad days, but in the end, you got to get it done. And I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank you for having me here and having me run my mouth and listen to me.
Not a problem.
I really appreciate it.
You're
always
a
welcome to Rep City.
All right.